Did the play's master high drama?
Dutch Masters, the play at the Wild Project, written by Greg Keller and directed by by Andre Holland. Don't be fooled by the title, because it is not about Rembrandt or Vermeer and all the Dutch great painters. It's about a black and a white man, and it is basically about the deepest possible racism between these two colors, And I cannot really reveal the plot. The play in the beginning has some problem with the basic situation, how he brings them to Eric's apartment. If that writing can be changed a little bit in the beginning, it would be a wonderful play. I like the rest of the play, very poignant. It reveals something which I cannot reveal. And there's an actor named Ian Duff. He plays Eric. He is absolutely fantastic. I love the show, actually, but there are some problems, but I'm still happy with it, and I'm going to give a happy face.
This is a review by Bob Creso of We Are a Masterpiece, more on Facebook. Gina Femia's We Are a Masterpiece takes us to the Midwest in the early 80s and the early days of the AIDS crisis, when it was a poorly understood gay plague and everybody was in fear of it. 20-something Charles and John are happy in their relationship until Charles finds lesions on his body. He's admitted to the Kalamazoo hospital where the nurses are afraid to touch him. Others won't even enter the room, but one brave nurse, Joan, steps in despite her fears, treats the patients with generous respect, and later a lowly janitor also rises to the occasion. The intimate play gets lost in the cavernous theater at 14th Street Y and needs a lot of improvements. Basically, it shouldn't be 3 hours long, and the staging should be redone. We don't know whether he gives this a happy face, minus, or mixed, but you could read much more on Facebook.
Bedlam has tackled Shaw's Pygmalion in their own inimitable style. The story of Eliza the flower girl, who is now from India and wishes to talk proper so she can work in a flower shop. She gets Professor of Phonetics Henry Higgins and his sidekick Colonel Pickering to teach her. When her father hears of this, he touches them for money and endears himself to them with his philosophical musings of the undeserving poor. Eliza meets Freddie Einsford Hill and his family at a gathering at Henry's mother's house, where she is tested with her newfound ability to speak well. Freddie instantly falls in love with her and her brand of small talk. What will become of Eliza after she sheds her Cockney Indian ways and becomes a lady? This was so cleverly staged by Eric Tucker from the first moment we get to hang out with the characters in Covent Gardens to the final scenes based more on Shaw than Lerner and Lowe. Having Eliza and her father coming from India and all that implies was inspired. The way the actors played multiple characters and sexes with just a hat or a voice change was exceptional. Charlotte Palmer Land's costumes and John McDermott's set contributed mightily to the overall enjoyment of this resplendent production. Major happy face. Yay! Bedlam is back after the horrible Peter Pan.
Theatre for a New Audience presents Shakespeare's The Winter's Tale, a play about a king's irrational jealousy, his horrible treatment of his very pregnant wife, and his almost killing of his best friend, another king, and how many years later redemption is brought about by a miracle. It's also the play with Exit pursued by bear, and this production makes much more use of the bear with very beautiful choreography. Let's see. All the action takes place on a spare white set, but gorgeous lighting, falling snow, falling leaves, wonderful costumes make this seem far from minimal. There's a lot of tragic action, but the clowns in this play are genuinely mirthful, and Arnie Burton as the thieving Autolycus is priceless. It's really a great production. It's one of my favorite Shakespeare productions, so you should really see it.
The Q Brothers Collective have now turned their hip-hop hijinks on Liz Estrada by Aristophanes, calling it Ms. Estrada. Here, the ancient Greek comedy where the women withhold sex until the men stop fighting a war. In this version, the women take over Acropolis University and they won't give in to booty calls until they all take off the Greek games. Usually their updated renderings are pretty clever and spot on, but here they missed the mark. Greek Games was too ambivalent, and it didn't feel like there wasn't enough at stake for the women to rebel. The men were just gross and stupid, drinking and vomiting, and if I told you any more, you would get the dry heaves. And this teacher, who was a published political feminist, she says, you know, you do something and I'll give you Katharine Hepburn's autobiography. And there's lots of Audrey Katharine Hepburn comments. And there's this guy in this thing, he's sympathetic to the women, but he's constantly mansplaining. And they go on all about those stupid pronouns, which I take people at face values, and I find all this pronoun stuff very confusing. But even though this is seriously flawed and not up to the level that I expect from the cues, I still enjoyed seeing the bats and the false rhythm pattern of the music and the energetic, sexy dancing. Their heart was in the right place, if not their execution. So I'm giving it a mixed.
At Theatre for St. Clement's, there's Babettes Feast, which is originally from a short story by Isaac Dinesen, but best known for the 1987 movie, which fabulously focused on the food, but here, conceived and developed by Abigail Colleen and written by Rose Courtney, we focus on the very austere Norwegian fjord community, which has a religious leader, the deacon, who has two beautiful daughters, and they have suitors who also influence them and the village.
The suitors come from the outside. Babette comes from the outside. So how do these outside influences come into this extremely secular, insular.
Insular.
I meant to say insular, pious. So how does secular go against...
Well, but it's also, there is spiritual, because Babette represents a much more, you know, she's French. And so there's much more sensuality, and it's about loving food and being an artist, which are also ways of being spiritual that's just outside of the realm of these people's conception of the world.
Right, which is a very limited, and it's just...
But they're very good people.
Yeah, and...
So it confronts two different ways of good.
And the way it's staged is very clever. I mean, they have these Quakerish costumes on, and it's just really the only misstep to me was during the food preparation. It's all mimed with weird noises.
Yeah, I thought that was dreadful. I didn't care that much for the costuming and stuff. But what I liked about the staging was that they do put Babette in the background during most of the preparation, and you see in the foreground all the people of the community, and that's what this production focuses on. And
it was, again, very well acted, how they stepped out of their thing to turn into other characters. So it's like, I'm giving it a happy face.
I would give it happy face minus. The mime and the storytelling were kind of annoying.
And I would agree with the minus part over the noise making for food preparation.
But it's still worth seeing, because it really gives you a different fix on this rather wonderful story.
And also, I know we're had the faces up too long. Also, the thing I liked best about it was the fact that, unlike the movie, this had more of a conflict, more of a story. There was more to chew on.
Well, not really, because the movie is just so fabulous about all the details of preparation. The movie's a great thing. This is okay.
Well, I like them more than you. Lindsay Ferrantino's Amy and the Orphans is a bittersweet look at a family that is just trying to cope with the difficult situation that they don't know how to handle without being the bad guys. The play opens up with a married couple locked in a room to work out their issues, how to handle what to do with Amy, their Down syndrome baby. Interspersed with these scenes are their now grown-up children, Maggie and Jacob, trying to reconnect with Amy, who is fiercely guarded by Kathy, her very pregnant nurse, who has very strong opinions on how stuffing should be made. In fact, food works its way into all the characters' M.O. The main trouble for me was Amy spoke in a fast-clipped voice, which made it difficult for me to comprehend her until the end, where she launches into this famous movie quotes, because she loved going to the movies. You'll find out in the play why, and that's when the real impact was felt, how she used famous movie quotes to show off her situation. And also, this was back then where people with Down syndrome were not treated as productive members of society, but like, oh my God, Down syndrome, throw them in an institution immediately, get them away from us, hide them, don't talk about them, be embarrassed by them. So this was, and I guess this is about her own family, I guess. So it's really very well handled, very well good. I mean, you really felt this was a real family squabbling, and the actors were just so wonderful. This was really good, but I'm giving it a happy face minus just because. So I'm giving it a happy face minus just because I couldn't really understand Amy or the family until the very end. It really comes together in the end.
Kristen Hardwick and I saw The Edge of Our Bodies by Adam Rapp at 59 East 59th Street. In this play, 16-year-old Whitney Prep School junior Bernadette, played wonderfully by Carolyn Malloy, takes the train down to New York City to visit her 19-year-old boyfriend Michael. She spends her afternoon and early evening with Michael's cancer-stricken dad Wayne. Will Bernadette get to tell Michael her big news? And what else will happen to her during her New York weekend? This is essentially a really extended monologue in which Bernadette reads to us from her journals. She's separated from the audience by a mesh screen that goes around in this sort of semi three-quarter circle staging, very intimate space. And, you know, she's not quite a woman, but not really a girl anymore. And she's at a place where she can make a lot of stupid and dangerous decisions. Kristen and I both thought the acting was wonderful, and, you know, like, we really liked the way this character was developed. Kristen thought it was a little bit like a girl talking to an audience of her stuffed animals, and that she wasn't really sure that she was telling the truth, that this might have been all in her imagination. I think that was because Kristen didn't want the girl to be exposed to the dangers that she exposed herself to. But we really, really, really liked the writing. Normally, I don't go for a 1.5 hour monologue with one person delivering, but here I was totally wrapped by Adam Rapp's words. So we both really give it a happy face.
A Letter to Harvey Milk is this wonderful, corny, old-fashioned musical with lyrics by Ellen Schwartz, additional lyrics by Cheryl Stern, music by Laurie Kramer, and the book is by Ellen Schwartz, Cheryl Stern, Laurie Kramer, and Jerry James, and it's based on the short story A Letter to Harvey Milk by Leslie Newman. It's about this Alta-Cocker Jewish fella whose wife has died, and she haunts him and talks to him rather a lot, and he ends up going to the Jewish Center, and he feels sorry because this young woman writer, she's got this writing classes no one signed up for. Oh, I'm not a writer, I was a butcher. This takes place in San Francisco. But he feels bad, so she won't get paid, so he becomes he joins her class. And she gets him to write, and at one point she says, could you write a letter to someone? Doesn't have to be alive. So that's where he writes this letter to Harvey Milk, who turns out came into his butcher shop, and they find out they're both from Long Island. They know the same people, grew up on the same block. They're landsmen, so they become really good friends. So so that's how that develops. The music was wonderful, and it was just, you know, it's the old man, young person helping each other kind of story, which I normally do not like that genre, but because they had the dead wife, you know, making comments and the whole thing, that made it much more entertaining. And then the ending, the final reveal keeps it from being too sickly sweet that even Mark might like it. I mean, because the ending is a real, like, shock. But it's a beautiful musical, and it's open-ended, so hopefully you'll get to see it. I want to talk about this one immediately afterwards, because this is the same genre of the old man, young man helping each other out, and it goes very well with what I just talked about. This is Shem Bitterman's The Stone Witch, which concerns Simon Grinberg, an aging famous children's book writer and illustrator, postponing writing another one of his eagerly anticipated books while his dogged editor Claire gets the idea that maybe superfan and fellow children book illustrator Peter Chandler might be just the push Simon needs to finally finish his last obligation to the editor. How far is Peter willing to go to help his idol? What is he willing to sacrifice? Why is it so important to Claire? What is holding Simon back and making him so reclusive? And this is not a musical, but oh my God, the projections are just gorgeous in this. And it's got Dan Lauria in it, and Carolyn McCormick, and Rupak Ginn. And I was at the opening night party, so I got a chance to talk to the writer and one of the actors. And I'm going to show bits and pieces of that right now. But again, this is a really wonderful story, and again an older person, younger person genre thing that I don't like, but it's so beautifully handled here with such incredible acting, and it's an enchanting little story, and I really recommend it. I had a chance to interview Shem Bitterman, Steve Zuckerman, and Rupak Ginn at the opening of The Stone Witch, and here are the interviews. Hello, here we are with
Shem Bitterman.
Oh, you're the playwright.
I am. I'm the playwright.
Oh my gosh, how did you come up with this idea in the first place?
This play had a bit of a gestation period. I started because my grandmother used to live on 63rd and 3rd. And as I was walking down the street, there's that wonderful little museum called the Society of Illustrators. And I saw that name on that museum plate, and I said, oh, that's a great title for a play. So that began my thinking. And then also when I was young, I used to know Stella Adler quite a bit. And she became the model of that kind of behavior that I wanted to sort of write about, you know, the character of a great person with big size. And I wanted to write about sort of that world before it disappeared. The story is about a young kid who's hired by he's enticed by a magazine publisher to go and help an older children's book illustrator and writer to write a book, and she's been waiting for this book for 12 years, so he's brought in to kind of help get this out of the elderly gentleman. And the guy is a great guy. He's one of the seminal figure, and it's about their relationship and sort of what they both wind up giving each other over the course of, you know, several weeks. And the older guy, he initially appears very virile and strong, but over time you begin to discover other things about him. And it's really about this sort of relationship that's maybe a last best chance for both of them in a sane way.
And the projections just were so incredible.
Did I do an okay job?
Oh, yeah, fantastic. And the projections were just amazing.
Yeah, aren't they beautiful? They're really. It's been a wonderful collaboration with a wonderful team of collaborators, from the guy who wrote the music, Roger Ballon, who I've worked with, done 6 or 7 plays with. I've worked with the director. I've done 8 or 9 plays with that director, Steve Zuckerman, and then we have. The set designer, Yael Pardes, is somebody I know from LA. I've never worked with her before, but we're friends through mutual friends, and she did all the illustrations and as well as the set design. And so it's been a great dream team of like collaborators, and everybody's sort of attuned to one another's style.
Oh, that explains it.
Steve Zuckerman.
And you are the
Director.
Of the Stone Witch.
Of the Stone Witch, yes.
Well, how did you get involved in this wonderful project?
I've been working with Shem for 30 years. This is the 7th play that we've done together. We've written 2 screenplays together, and we're very good friends. And so it was not hard to get involved with this particular play or the last 7 plays that we've done together.
So, are you involved? Do you like fairy tales and children's stories?
I'm a big science fiction fan and fantasy fan, and but that wasn't the impetus for me to get involved in it. It's more just the creative element and finding that fine line between creativity and madness, which Simon personifies so beautifully. You know, the character and Dan's performance. You know, he wavers back and forth between being totally sane and
lost to his own world,
and very perceptive, to being chased by demons, and that's not uncommon with many artists. And so that's That's the thing that attracted me most to this particular project. He's written, it's the ability to look at the world through a different prism, you know, which creates things that normal people wouldn't create.
And have this amazing imagination.
Exactly, exactly.
You know, the music just made me want to cry in the very beginning.
I know, it's beautiful. And so...
it sets up the whole little fantasy, magical element.
Right, and that's important because there's parts of this play that are very realistic, and there are parts of this play that are not, you know, and that's what allows it to breathe and be bigger than a little play. It's a big, I keep on saying it's a big little play, or a little big play. I'm not so sure which one.
With Rupak Ginn.
And you play the part of
Peter Chandler in The Stone Witch.
and you are you have a children illustrator in your own right, and you have to help this elderly gentleman out.
Yes, it's so hard because he hasn't been able to write for 12 years. He's got this massive writer's block. He's got all sorts of psychoses, and he's not able to do it. And his editor sends me up to see if I can sort of coax it out of him.
Yeah, it's the old guy, young guy genre.
Yeah, that's right. It's an old guy, young guy bromance. That's what I call it. Yeah.
And where you both come to an understanding.
Yes. Yes, actually, what's great about it is that it's a two-way street, and there's this idea that the old can teach the young, but the young can teach the old, and we inspire each other, and that's what I love, the message of collaboration around that.
And I love the fact that you use your Stone Witch, which you've been for 8 years. I mean, he's 12, you're 8. That's like 20 years of like...
It's a lot of writer's block.
But did the Stone Witch you finally write, do you think it was the actual Stone Witch you were working on that your mother told you?
You know, it probably had elements of that, but I'm positive that it changed via my experience of Simon, via Peter's experience of Simon. It definitely changed. That's actually crucial to the story, is that he comes in with something, but then via spending time with this genius, it changes, you know?
And you did inspire him with the honey tree.
Oh yeah, I definitely take some credit for the honey trees.
Although actually, I think the Jasmine Pearl should get the credit.
That's right. Love the tea bit. People like that tea bit. I love it too.
There's nothing like a good spit take.
Oh, man. I'm glad you caught that. You were paying attention.
Yes. So do you what's your favorite fairy tale?
Oh gosh. So the first one that comes to mind, strangely, I don't know if it's my favorite, is Hansel and Gretel. But I like it. I was also scared by it. Maybe it's just a bit of a Stone Witch, right? Because they get teased into this place and then get trapped, and then they have to work together to get out of it.
And there's an oven in it.
There's an oven. That's what it was.
And food, because she eats the stone, and you become what you consume, and the children consume candy, and you become sweet.
You must be a children's book writer, clearly.
Well, I dabble.
But that was look. I love all fairy tales. I'm a big fan of fantasy, Lord of the Rings, like all that's Hobbit, mythology. I'm a huge fan. So this is right up my alley.
And I mean, and the thing is, even though they're serious and all, you guys had so much fun playing up there with your soldiers and sparring with each other. I mean, it was really the connection between you was so palpable.
I'm glad to hear that. Well, it's real. I mean, Dan's a fantastic guy. Off stage, we just had a lot of fun together. So we just brought it on stage, and you gotta have fun. If you're not having fun, it's not worth it, you know? The life of an artist is too risky for it not to be fun.
Well, you are in good company and good everything, and congratulations.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I just saw Sharon Washington's show Feeding the Dragon for Primary Stages, directed by Maria Milley. This is a marvelous story, and it's true. Who knew? She grew up in St. Agnes Branch's library, where her father worked, taking care of the library, cleaning, scrubbing, locking up, feeding the dragon, which was the furnace, you know, putting coal in it. It's still an old-fashioned thing, and you had to keep that furnace going all the time, even the summer, or else you'd be screwed. And, I mean, how exciting to have a library all to yourself at night, and she got to read all these wonderful books, and she would read from Langston Hughes to us, and other wonderful stories, and her father was from North Carolina or South Carolina, or her mom was from New York, and she painted such a vivid picture of her family that you really got to know them really well, including the dark secret that spoiled everything. But this gets a major happy face. It is just a wonderful story. And now for the play that we talked about. Eliza Bent has a play at Abrons Art Center, and I'm going April 13th. The review will be on the Facebook page. And Target Margin is doing Pay No Attention to the Girl. And we're going to see 3 small Irish masterpieces on April 11th, so the review will be on the Facebook page. One of the masterpieces is Ing's Rider to the Sea. And we'll talk about the Flat Earth on our next show, and the Lucky Ones on our next show. The Flat Earth is about the aftermath after a middle school shooting, and the Lucky Ones is Abigail Benson's troublesome family. They're both very powerful pieces. And my entire Stone Witch interviews is on the Facebook page. Go to Fine Signs 54 below. There's so much going on, I just can't tell you all of it. A lot of Scott Siegel stuff. And second series is back with Charles Strauss's Dance a Little Closer, and he'll be there for a book signing afterwards. It's Stephen McCasland, who always does this great job. And Queen Marie of Roumania wrote this great book, and they're doing that at the library. And Every Act of Life is this movie by Terrence McNally at the Tribeca Film Festival with Christine Baranski and all sorts of theater folk in it. So I'm hoping to get to see it. And Gilbert and Sullivan is doing Ruddigore next with my favorite David Macaluso. The review will be on the Facebook page. And at 92nd Street Y, they're having an evening with the band's visit, all the people there. And Broadway Talks is going to talk to the women of the Waitress. And Will Friedwell is going to be remembering Barbara Cook. So lots of great stuff going on at 92nd Street Y. You don't want to miss. And of course, here's got Symphony Fantastique at the moment. Charles Bush is at Theater for the New City. And John Von Claude Italy is at La Mama. And at BAM, you got Anthony Scher doing King Lear. I'd love to see Locked Up Bitches at the Flea. It looks really good. Lots going on at the Tank. Jamie Leo's got some stuff there and a bunch of other people. Transfers is going on at MCC. And some great stuff on the Facebook page. I talked to Mark Waldrop about When Pigs Fly that they did recently. And these are the parody productions. And don't forget to pick up your Performing Arts Insider, the Cultural Heartbeat of New York City. It just lists everything you need to know about what's going on. Our next show is April 28th. And again, you can see everything on our Facebook page. The entire show even.